Okay, perfect. So now it's 3 past. So I'll start the presentation. And as always, remember that there is an interactive Q&A at the end. So please feel free to send any questions. And just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded. So be aware of that. Yeah. And give us the consent to record. Okay, so as you may know, Project Access has expanded its operations to also include top European universities like Sciences Po, Bocconi, and ETH Zurich. So far, Project Access has been helping students access top UK and US universities. And we have a very successful mentorship scheme where we pair students who are volunteering from top universities with mentees who are also from sometimes from disadvantaged backgrounds. So we really want to help everyone, and we always help for free. So Project Access is a charity, and our mission is to widen access to top quality education for everyone. And this is why this year we also decided to expand into top European universities to ensure that you can apply anywhere you would like to, and that there is this diversity in the offer. So the goal of this webinar, first I'll present the goal of this webinar, and then our 3 amazing panelists. Then there will be a brief application process overview for Sciences Po, Bocconi, and ETH Zurich. And then we'll have a live Q&A with our panelists. So for this purpose, please send your questions to the chat. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with an overview of what Project Access has to offer. So how our charity can empower you in your application process. So there are 3 main goals of this workshop. The first goal is to ensure that you know what opportunities there are out there, so that you know more about the universities you could apply to, meaning, for example, what is required for the application process and what courses you could study there. So really to raise awareness and give you the information that you need to make a decision. And the second goal of the workshop is to let you know what it is really like to study at these universities, which is why we have our amazing panelists here, so that they can tell you their personal story and answer your questions. And the panelists will be able to not only share their personal experience, but also let you know what the student life is like at these universities, or what the extracurricular activities you could do there, so that you can really imagine what it's like to be a student. And then thirdly, we'll answer any questions you might have, especially about Sciences Po and Bocconi today. Okay. So first, I'll ask all the panelists to introduce themselves. Who you are and what you study and what your personal story is. So let me start with Frida. Frida, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Frida, as it says in the presentation. And I am a first-year student at Sciences Po. Oh, excuse me. At Sciences Po, doing international relations, focusing on the Middle East. So I will be here in the south of France for 2 years, and then I'm moving to New York for the second part of my dual degree, which will be at Columbia. And what my second major will be, and I'm still not 100% sure, but it will be something related to international relations, and I'm leaning more towards Middle Eastern studies now as well. And so the campus that I am at is a pretty small place, but we have a lot of student associations. And some of the projects that I'm involved in at the moment is a cultural research project focusing on Arab influences in the south of Spain. The Environmental Club, which I'm also a researcher for, to spread more awareness around global warming. And the student government, where I'm focusing on student life in general.
That sounds amazing. Thank you, Frida, for introducing yourself. And I can't wait to ask you more questions about your experience in the live Q&A. So next up, we have Lea. So could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Lea. I'm from Germany, from the north of Germany. I did my undergrad at Warwick, so in the United Kingdom, and I studied philosophy, politics, and economics with a major in economics. That's why I wanted to do something with economics as well in my postgraduate degree. So that made me choose a dual degree with Sciences Po in Paris. So I'm in the Paris campus, and SSE, which is Stockholm School of Economics. So at Sciences Po, I'm studying international economic policy at PSIA. So there are 7 graduate schools at Sciences Po, and PSIA is one of them. And then at SSE in Stockholm, I'll be doing economics. So yeah, the reason I chose this degree was basically the dual degree. I was really interested in getting to know 2 different cities in Europe, and also like living in Paris. I'm in Paris at the moment. So if you have any like questions, just let me know. Yeah, so I interned at DK Bank in Germany, where I actually got a bit more into the whole economics thing. Currently working as an M&A advisor as well, and I'm actually involved in PA as well, so I'm leading the German team. So also if you have any questions concerning PA, just let me know.
Thanks a lot, Lea. And yes, yes, Lea is our head of German team. So it's super exciting to also have her here as our panelist.
Okay.
And next up, we have Christian. Yeah.
So hi, my name is Christian. I actually come from Macedonia, not from Germany. It's a minor mistake here on the slide. Yeah, I'm born and raised in Macedonia, where I did my high school, and after that I moved for my studies in Slovenia, where I did half of my studies in the University of Economics in Ljubljana and Catch Business School in France, to be more specific, in Bordeaux. After that, I worked for a while at Renault, the French car maker. Like first I was a market analyst there, then I was a marketing coordinator. After which I decided that I wanted to do a master's degree, and I chose to do it in Bocconi. Currently, I'm a second-year master's student in Bocconi, studying marketing management and majoring in big data and business analytics. The projects that I was involved here in Bocconi, these are just few of them, basically, because during our master studies in marketing management program, we do a lot of projects for a lot of companies. But the most important and interesting ones for me were the data-driven brand analysis of European football clubs, where we worked with social media listening and quantitative analytics of football brands. Another thing is the L'Oreal Brandstorm, where we presented our projects in front of the L'Oreal like top-level managers, and digital media strategy for Mattel, which was also an interesting one. I speak English, Macedonian, Serbo-Croatian, Slovenian, and Italian. Italian a bit. Currently, I am involved in, basically I'm practicing for my consulting interviews. So I'm interviewing with McKinsey, BCG, Carney, and a few local boutiques here in Milan. So yeah, if you have any questions about Bocconi, about consulting, or anything else, feel free to ask. Thank you.
It's amazing. Thank you so much for the introduction, and yeah, best of luck with your interviews as well. We'll be very excited to ask you more questions about that also during the Q&A, and about how doing a master's at Bocconi helped you with your career so far. Amazing. So now, after the introductions, I'll be very happy to now give you an overview of the application process, just for context, so that when you ask further questions in the Q&A, you'll know what potential difficulties you might encounter in your application process, and you might want to ask our panelists also about what they did to maximize their chances and really show their potential in that process. So I'll start by presenting Sciences Po to you. So Sciences Po is a university in France. It is one of the top universities, not only in France, but also in the world. And there are a few truly amazing things about Sciences Po that I think would encourage so many people to apply. So the first fact is that it is a very international university. In 2018, it was actually also ranked as the most international university in France. So I think this will appeal to someone who wants to know people from different cultures. And even though it is a university in France, you also have a truly international experience. Another really cool fun fact about Sciences Po is that it has an amazing alumni network, and many French presidents studied there. For example, the current president of France. This shows that it is a very renowned university in France. The third key fact about Sciences Po is that if you have limited financial resources, it is not a barrier when it comes to applying. And I think this is a very important message to everyone, is that fees should not stop you from getting top quality education. And according to Sciences Po, nearly a third of the students there receive a full fee scholarship. And for those who don't receive a scholarship, if you are an EU student, how much you pay depends on your socioeconomic background. So it is calculated depending on your family background as well. And it can range from 0 to 13,000 euros. To make your experience at Sciences Po even more international, all undergraduate students spend their third year studying abroad in one of their 478 partner universities. So there is a very big choice. And also there is the opportunity to do a dual degree. So not only go abroad for your third year, but do what one of our panelists is doing, and do a dual degree for your undergrad. Or do what Leah is doing and have a dual degree for masters. So it's possible for all levels. So what is the application process like? For the undergraduate application process, there are 4 key elements. The first one is sending your grades that you obtained on the exam, or your predicted grades, for example, for the IB. And then you also include your academic record of what you actually achieved over the last 3 years of secondary school. And you'd also be expected to write 3 essays. So instead of having just one personal statement like for the UK, you'd write 3 separate essays. And this is a change that they introduced this year for the new applicants. And then the 4th thing is the famous Sciences Po interview, which gives you the chance to also talk to the academics there, and for them to get to know you and really understand why it is that you want to apply to Sciences Po. And then for masters, you require references, and you also require a personal statement. that you will send to the university. And it is written in the language of the program that you would like to study. So I hope that this gives you a good overview, and if you have any questions, please ask them in the chat as well. So now I will move on to provide an overview for Bocconi. So Bocconi is one of the top universities in Italy. It is especially well known for business, management, economics, data science, and it also has computer science. So you can see that Bocconi is quite a specialized university. So in contrast to Sciences Po, which focuses more on economics and social studies and political studies, Bocconi is more focused on business and management. However, it also offers courses, for example, related to politics. So it's really important for you to go on the website and really discover the full offer. So a few key facts about Bocconi. It is ranked as 7th best in the world for business and management. And as I said before, highly ranked in all the subjects that are offered. Another important thing about Bocconi is that you don't have to speak Italian when you study there. There are courses in Italian, but there are also courses in English. And you can learn Italian whilst you're studying there. So if you're interested in learning even more languages, and if you're interested in that Italian culture, it might be the right choice for you. And finally, Bocconi also has its own international program, and it's called the World Bachelor in Business. And it lasts 4 years. And during that 4-year program, the undergraduates study not only at Bocconi, but also in the US and Hong Kong. So you can see that it's very international. This will appeal to someone who is looking forward to just exploring different parts of the world as well. So what is the application process like at Bocconi? For undergraduates, you have to fill in an online application. And Bocconi really emphasizes that this application should be filled in as soon as possible. Because there are different rounds of the application cycle. So it's important to apply very soon. And to get into Bocconi, you also have to take a selection test. And there are 2 ways you could do this. So the first one is to take the Bocconi test. And for that, you can prepare specifically. And then alternatively, you could also send your results from SATs. So, for example, if you're also applying to the US, this might be a way to also use your SAT scores twice. For masters, you'd have to include your results from the GMAT test and also your grade point average of exams passed in your undergraduate program. And Bocconi says that there is no strict benchmark regarding the number of points that you have to achieve. Of course, it's always best to aim for the highest possible score. And for masters, you'd also send a personal statement and a CV. Okay. So as always, if you have any questions about the Bocconi application process, please ask in the chat. And now I'll present ETH Zurich. So this university is one of the best universities in Switzerland and in the world as well. It's very well known for science. So it's actually ranked first in the world in earth and marine sciences. However, it offers a vast array of programs in science. And it's also ranked 6th in the QS Global World University rankings. So you can see that has a very strong global reputation. In Zurich, all undergraduates study in German. So it is a university that has language requirements. So if you already have a good level of German and you would like to apply it during your studies, this might be the university for you. And Zurich also has, like all top universities, amazing alumni. So they have 21 Nobel laureates, including including some of the most famous scientists in the world. And the third key fact about this university is that it is in an amazing location, because Switzerland is very well known for having one of the highest quality of life in the world, and the campus is also very modern and very vibrant, with many academics visiting. So to give you an overview of the application process there, for undergraduate, you need to send in an online application and include your CV, your school transcripts, and some courses also require a German language certificate. So it's very important to take care of that before you start applying. And for masters, the application process really depends on where you did your bachelor's, and they really emphasize your academic results as well, and also the reputation of your university where you did your undergrad. So this concludes the brief overview of each university, and I hope it gives you a very good context of what to expect from each of these. So I'll just give you a very short summary. So for Sciences Po, we talked about there being courses in politics, economics, and social sciences. And for Bocconi, it's a university very well known for business, for management, economics, but also other options. And for ETH Zurich, we talked about excellent courses in science and studying in Germany. So if you have any questions, I'll just check the chat right now. Okay, perfect. So we have a lot of questions from our attendees, which is really exciting. So now I'll just ask each panelist a question that's most relevant to them, and feel free to send in more. So the first question that we have is to Frida. So Frida, our attendees are interested in knowing how to write these essays for Sciences Po, because we know that there are a lot of essays to write in the undergraduate application process, and I know that you also wrote a personal statement when you were applying. So could you give us some guidance on how to approach writing these essays?
Yes, so the first essay you have to write, you can see it more as a CV, if you will, and it has more of your formal information or academic background. And then you will have a personal statement, and then there's also, they have different questions and you choose one of them and you answer. So I would say to give as a holistic image of you as possible, to let the committee get to know you a bit as a person before they take you in for an interview. And yes, I think like the idea behind the process of Sciences Po is to get to know the applicant before the interview, and then the interview is more related to the campus that you chose and the region of focus. So usually the interview is giving an analysis of current conflict in the region. So to give a holistic perception of yourself, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. So if someone is thinking about giving a holistic kind of overview of their activities, but they are not sure what to include and what not to include, because, for example, sometimes it's still hard to, get the word count right and really only include the relevant information. Do you have any more additional guidance? So how would you, for example, structure your essay, or how did you brainstorm to decide what to include?
Yes, so also a thing for Sciences Po that I didn't mention earlier is that they focus a lot on student involvement. So I think the the best advice I could give is to kind of give an overview of your background and the project that you're passionate about, and then how you will continue with this work in Sciences Po, and how there's a red thread between what you've done before and what you want to do in the future. So kind of bring up what you are currently doing and what you're passionate about, and then connect it to what you would like to do in the future.
Okay, this is really helpful. Thank you so much, Vida, for your advice. And if the person who asked that question has any follow-up questions, please send them in the chat. Amazing. So now I'd like to ask a question to La, also about Sciences Po. So I think the person asking is interested in your choice of a dual degree for your master's. So why did you decide to choose a dual degree? And how, I'm also interested in knowing how that ties into your education, your previous education at Warwick in the UK. So why change countries and why an international dual degree?
Well, that is a very good question, and one that I thought about a lot before applying, and also having gotten the offers, because I ended up having an offer from Cambridge and then the one from the dual degree. So I was very much torn between staying in the UK, but then there was that issue of Brexit, and I was feeling like I've already seen so much of the UK and I really love the country, but I wanted to get to know something else as well. And then Warwick is a really nice campus. It's very cozy, but it's also sort of its own bubble. It's quite small, as you know, Sasha. So I was really, motivated to go into a big city and actually live the whole city life and see what that's like. So that definitely played into that decision. And then the other main factor of choosing between those two opportunities was that I wanted to do a 2-year master's degree. And in the UK, most of the postgraduate options are only 1 year. And since I was considering, or I'm still considering, doing a PhD after, it's quite hard if you want to do a PhD if you just do a master's degree with only 1 year. So that's why I then opted for the dual degree, also because it really combined what I was interested in. So I think the main factor in the end was really the subject matter that I was interested in, because currently it's economic policy. So that means there's economics, but it's a very applied version of that. So that's what I would also say is quite cool about Sciences Po. Rather than having many academics, they have many practitioners who actually teach. So for instance, last semester, the vice president of I think it was the Bank of the Council of Europe or something, was giving a course on international cooperation and finance, and that was super interesting. So that's why in the end I chose the dual degree, because also then in Stockholm I'll be doing just economics, but I still keep that politics perspective, which I really liked during my undergrad and PP at Warwick.
That's super interesting. And yes, I totally understand your perspective as well, since I'm from Warwick myself. And I have a follow-up question to that, actually. So doing a dual degree means that you have to move very often. So you already lived in the UK for 3 years, and now you will live for a year in Paris, and then you'll move to Sweden. So how do you deal psychologically with having to change countries and adapt to new environments so quickly? Do you have any tips for those who are concerned that they might not enjoy such change?
Well, it's certainly not that easy. As I'm currently experiencing, I just built my network in Paris. I found so many nice people, but then I have to leave in 4 months or so. So it's definitely not easy, but at the same time, I'm so excited of getting to, I feel like it was a unique opportunity to live in a city for 1 year, and then you can decide whether you actually like living there or not. So that's why I also opted for the dual degree, knowing that I'd only at the same time be living for 1 year in that city as well. But like that's also some sort of motivation behind the PhD thing. So I'm thinking currently, like I really like moving. I really like the international experience because you meet so many people who are also like-minded. And at the same time, there's also, in my degree, at least 5 to 6 other people who are also doing the dual degree. So that means that I still have like some people moving together with me to Stockholm, and we might live together, etc. You know, that's a really nice network as well. But at the same time, I'm thinking after that year in Stockholm, I sort of want to live in one place for a longer time. So that's also why I might want to do a PhD, just to live at one place until like 3 to 5 years or something. So yeah, it's definitely not that easy, but I'd say like the logistics is definitely something you have to organize, but then the benefits of like having a super international experience, meeting so many different people, and also experiencing different cultures in such a like short times that you can actually compare the mindsets, and if you like living in that country, that for me is definitely like a unique opportunity.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you for your explanation and your insights. I'll just do a quick follow-up with Frida, because you also chose to do a dual degree, but for your undergrad. So do you feel like you share Lara's perspective, or do you have maybe a slightly different approach?
I think obviously I'm still in my first year doing a dual degree, so I don't share Leah's previously experiences of moving a lot. I think as for now, I'm very excited about doing a dual degree and getting such different experiences, both environmental wise and also academically wise. But I think for me, especially like now, I have always lived in one place, and I'm very excited about getting to live abroad and getting to live in 2 different places throughout my undergrad experience. And then we will see eventually after I'm done with that if I would like to do the same kind of dual degree for my master's.
Amazing. Yeah. Your journey seems very exciting ahead. So I hope you enjoy living in both countries for your dual degree. And my next question is to Christian. So you also had a lot of international experience because you studied, you did your bachelor's in 2 countries at two different universities, and now you study at Bocconi. So I also wanted to know about what your experience was like moving between these different environments and these different universities. Please share.
Yeah, so I would agree with the girls on many points that they mentioned. Moving has its own pros and cons, of course. Meeting new people, getting to know like about different cultures, trying new food. Uh, it's always amazing, but it can be a lot sometimes. Yeah, so I did half of my bachelor's in Slovenia, half of it in France. Both of the countries are super different in terms of, for example, like Slovenia, Ljubljana is like quite a small town, like 200K people living there. And then Bordeaux in France is not super big one, but it's quite bigger one. So yeah, it was quite different living in these 2 cities. Another thing that for me was super interesting was the fact that in Slovenia I was studying in a more or less like classical university where the lectures were not like obligatory, so like you could only like study for your exams and been done with it. While in France it was completely different. I was in a business school, and I was working on projects like on a daily basis. I was supposed to be at school like every day, so it was a totally different experience, which is quite similar here in Bocconi now, the third country that I study at. So yeah, that's it. In terms of people, Like yeah, it's amazing to move around and meet as many people as you can, and build your network, but also like yeah, like increase your friends circle.
That sounds
That's
really
it.
good. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I think we see kind of from all of your experience that going to different universities requires you to adapt to new places and to new systems of studying. So I suppose it also makes you more versatile, and it will be also easier to adapt to change in the future. That's really cool. And the next sort of type of questions that we have from our audience today are about languages, which I think is a very a reasonable question, given that, of course, in all of these countries, you are studying in English. However, the country where you're living is not an English-speaking country. So the question is, and I would like to keep it open this time, how much is, for example, French or Italian a part of your life now? And do you think it will be possible for someone to, for example, still go and enjoy living there, even if they're not interested in learning a foreign language? Or do you think that it's really only for people who want to, for example, learn French and Italian?
I mean, I can take the question or go, and you guys can add stuff if you'd like. So for me, like, you have to separate between two things. First, the degree, and second, living your life in that country. So for me, the degree is totally in English. I could choose to do some courses in French, but to be honest, I didn't judge my French to be good enough for that. What I did was take French language courses. I had a B2 level before I moved here, and actually wanted to, elaborate on that and improve my French, which I managed to do. So for the degree, you don't need any French at all if you don't want to. However, also from the side of the administration in Sciences Po, every email you get will be in French and in English. So they really sort of insist on having at least a French version there as well. But then for the life, I mean, it's Paris. It is an international city, but it's still a French city. So from personal experience, I'd say you'd have to have sort of a really like a minimum standard of French, or at least being able or being willing to learn at least, say, A1 level of French. Like, you don't need it all the time, but if you're in a supermarket, or if you're talking to like someone you randomly meet on the street, which does happen, then you should be able to speak at least a bit of French. So if someone asks you ça va, then you're going to say ça va. And for me also, like, I'm living in the Cité Universitaire, which is actually a really nice area because there are a lot of student accommodation houses here. And I'm living in a German house, so every nation has its own house. And in the house, since there's 50% international people, the main language you speak is French. So they don't admit you into the house unless you speak French of level, I think, B1. So obviously, if you don't want to live, like in the student accommodation where this is required, then you don't need French. But I'd say it is good also to feel sort of comfortable in the country, because the French really like adhere to their language, and they really enjoy speaking French and enjoy if other people speak French as well. And they're really willing to help as well. That might help. And I also saw a question about being worried that professors have a very bad level of of English. Yeah, I mean, having studied in the UK, loving that British accent, going to France where people are just like having really, really strong accents, it's been a bit of a horror. No, just kidding. Like, it is okay. You still understand them, but obviously it's a bit harder than having a native speak to you. But then at the same time, at least for me, the staff is really international as well. So I have a few Italian professors. I even have a few British professors. So I wouldn't worry about that too much at all.
If I can add something. Oh, sorry, you go first.
I mean, you can go. You finish with Sciences Po, and then I'm going to talk a bit about Bocconi.
For undergrad, there are language requirements, so you have to have French. It's a mandatory class for you to take until you get to B2 level, and then you can start taking the language of the regional campus. So my campus does Arabic, for example. So everyone who has reached at least the B2 level in French will have to take Arabic. So there are certain language requirements. Especially in undergrad Sciences Po, even if you already speak the language of the country, you still have to take certain language classes. I would say my experience is a bit different because I live in a very small city, and so basically I don't have a lot of interactions with people outside of my university. They're basically just the university students and old people who live in the city. So it's mainly in the supermarket and going to like restaurants. Not that people really do that anymore, but to get coffee, for example. But however, in Sciences Po's regional campuses, they do 2 tracks parallel. So they have an English track and they have a French track. So obviously, if you speak French, then you have a broader social environment and you can get to know more people. And certain associations and certain seminars, for example, are mainly in French. So I'd say you have a broader horizon both socially and academically if you speak both languages. But me, for example, I had never taken French before moving here, and I would say it's going pretty well. And you're also forced to learn a little bit, so that's always great.
Okay, so I can tell a word or two about Bocconi now. Firstly, I came here with like zero Italian, like I couldn't say a word in Italian, and I did not have any problems. So like Bocconi offers a lot of courses in English, so you can definitely do your degree only in English. So in terms of studies, there is no problem at all if you don't speak Italian. The school offers, so from the second semester, if you're an international student, you have to start studying Italian. But in the first semester, the school offers a preparatory course that is basically an A2 level actually. And it's very, very useful for like everyday conversations, for like going to the restaurant, ordering stuff, or like talking to the taxi driver, etc. So like for like the basic living stuff. Regarding the social life, I heard that Leah mentioned that they had a requirement for French in order to live in a university residence. Here it's not like that. I'm living, for example, in a residence, and they don't require any like language and knowledge. About the social life, yeah, it would be better if you speak Italian in a way that like you can meet more people. But at the same time, Bocconi is super international. So there is like a lot of international people that you can hang out with still. And Milan as well is super international. Most of the people actually have basic English. So like for basic stuff, you would be just fine even without Italian, which is not the case in the rest of Italy. But in Milan, it's just fine. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, guys, for all your amazing answers. I think it's quite clear to everyone, and I think it sounds similar for both countries. So basically, people are welcome to apply even if they don't know the language yet. They have the chance to learn it during their studies. It might open up some opportunities. However, it's also not absolutely necessary to speak it fluently once you're there. So yeah, that should hopefully answer the question. So now I'd like to ask you a few maybe specific questions from the chat. So Tulea, the attendee is asking, how would you get the references to apply for masters to Sciences Po? So did you get it from your college professors, maybe a former boss? How did you get the references?
Yeah, so to apply at Sciences Po, you have to have 2 academic references. And for that, I just asked my lecturers in my undergrad, but they don't have to be, professors. They can be just like having a PhD or something, and they should sort of know you well, or at least be able to say something about your academic abilities. And then I think it was optional. I'm not too sure. I think it was optional, but I also put a professional reference, which means that it was a reference from my internship. And actually, I would definitely recommend, like, if you have the possibility to get a professional reference, at least for the master's application, definitely attach it to your application, because Sciences Po is very, very applied, and they really want to know, like, want to help you to prepare for your professional life. So that means that if you have some sort of professional reference, definitely attach it. But I think you don't get to get around the academic references as well. So best of both worlds, basically.
Amazing. So yeah, that should hopefully answer the question. But if you have, if that indeed has any follow-up questions, please ask on the chat. So we also have another specific question regarding Bocconi. So the attendee is asking, how is the daily life like there? So maybe you can talk more about not only the academics, but also yeah, what's a typical day in the life of a Bocconi student?
Okay, that's a very good question. I think that's very important for every student, right? So the daily life, I just came back from a very nice Italian restaurant. Yeah, firstly, I would start with the fact that Bocconi is located very close to the center of Milan. So basically, like 15 minutes walk from Duomo. So like to go around Bocconi, to go around Milan and to see Milan, it's like super easy. Another thing is that there are a lot of student organizations and associations that organize events. Okay, now I'm talking pre-COVID, right? That organized events like on a daily basis, really. Also a lot of student parties are organized in clubs in Milan. So I guess if you're interested into that, don't worry about it. You're gonna have a lot of fun. Regarding like studying facilities, uh, the library is always available, and it's quite crowded there. But you can always find a spot to study and spend your time there, and also like meet people. And some other things. Basically, now in Bocconi, the new campus was supposed to be open. When things are gonna get better with COVID, it's gonna be open. So in there are gonna be like I think even spa center, a pool, like a gym, etc. So for the students, it's gonna be available to go and do some sports there, which is super important. I think so. Uh, what else would I add? I don't know if you have some more like specific questions. Maybe ask. Yeah.
Thanks for a great answer. I think it really made Bocconi come more to life. And yes, I think we all envy the amazing Italian food as well. For yes. Okay. So before we wrap up, we also have a question about finances, which I think is very important as well regarding, as we've heard about the application about the application process and the tuition fees. However, how would you judge the living costs to be like in these countries? For example, just for a benchmark, you could compare it to the UK, yeah, just how do you feel about it in general?
I mean, I can answer the question if you like. So, I mean, obviously very much depends on where you are in the country. Like, I can't speak for France in general. I can only speak about Paris, and I can't speak for the UK in general, can only speak for Warwick. So I was actually really lucky to get into this student accommodation because rent is actually affordable. But in terms of rent, you should, like, if you don't live in Cité, but anywhere else in the city, you should probably calculate with, like, this just a rough estimate, but I'd say 700 to 900 euros per month. So rent is definitely quite high, but there are many opportunities to get scholarships in France. And then you also get subsidized accommodation. So there's definitely a way to sort of afford then. And I'd say it is comparable to the UK in terms of rent. So quite expensive, but it's okay. And then living standards, even in Paris, like really much depends on where you live, basically. So for instance, I go grocery shopping at Lidl, which is so much more cheaper than going to Franprix in the center of the city. So that's a big difference. I'd say it is really comparable to the UK. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily more expensive. I mean, obviously, if you want to buy your coffee right next to the Eiffel Tower, you'd have to pay 8 euros, whereas if you're a bit further away from city center, it's going to be only 3 euros. So yeah, really much depends, but in general, I'd say it is comparable. So yeah, if you have any more like specific questions, just let me know. But it is manageable.
Okay, that's good. And you mentioned the opportunity to get scholarships or getting into student accommodation. So do you think that like for example, there are scholarships for non-French students, or like, and what do you have to do to actually get a student accommodation?
Okay, so in terms of scholarships, I mean, first of all, for Sciences Po, as you mentioned, it's actually quite nice because the tuition fees oriented depending on your parents' income. So if you're from a low income background, then you'd have to pay no, or at least not many tuition fees, like not much in terms of amount. So that's actually really nice and really fair, I'd say. And then scholarships, there do exist scholarships for non-French students. And if I remember correctly, I mean, Frida might be better to ask there, but I think you could, in the application process, also sort of select or tick a box saying, I want to apply to scholarships. Then you might have to write a personal statement, but in general, like the whole scholarship structure is quite strong in France. There's Crous, which is like the international, or sort of the French student support network. They also offer really like cheap meals. For instance, now it's only €1 for like a whole meal. So yeah, that's actually quite okay. And then for student accommodation, there are many different sorts of student accommodation. So for me now, CT is like a whole campus of just student accommodation where you apply according to your nationality. And then the application was actually quite extensive as well. So you also had to write a personal statement. You had to have a reference letter from an academic from your undergrad institution, because I think they only take postgrad and PhD students here. So it's been quite expensive, but it's definitely been worth it. And then for other student accommodation, it's just like a usual application. I'd say maybe send your CV. But yeah, that's just for Paris as well.
If I may, I can also add like about Bocconi. The situation is like super similar. So there are merit-based scholarships that are not limited on Italian students. Anybody can get them, and also need-based scholarship based on your parents' income, etc. The other thing that I would like to answer one more question from the chat. It was about whether you get a citizenship if you're a non-EU. student, since I am one, yeah, so you apply for a residency permit, and then you like get a residency permit for the whole year. You have to renew it every year, so it's not a problem at all. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so yeah, so you don't really get like a citizenship status, but you enjoy the full rights of a resident for the period of your studies.
Definitely.
Okay. That sounds very good. And Frida, would you like to add anything about Sciences Po and what your experience was like regarding finances?
So just like Leah said, there are a lot of good financial aid deals offered to European students. I keep on finding myself in a very annoying loophole where I am European, but I'm not in a country, a part of the union. So I'm not really eligible for anything. But in terms of scholarships for undergrad, there are a few, but there are a few very good ones, but they're super, super competitive. So they're very hard to get. As for accommodation, all the undergrad regional campuses offer student accommodation. How many places and how competitive it is depends a lot on where you are. I am on one of the campuses that has the most competition because it's a very small place, so there are not that many places for students to live. But then it's first come, first serve deal, so you have to be fast to apply for it. When it comes to rent otherwise, I live in Côte d'Azur, so it's pretty expensive in general, the rents. But there are typical like landlords that always rent out to students that come every year. So I'd say the general rent for apartments here range from 500 to 700 a month. Also, depending if you live with several roommates, obviously it's cheaper. So yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, thank you for adding this information about Sciences Po and like what it's like to live in a different city but still study at Sciences Po, because as we know, there are 7 campuses where Sciences Po is present. So it's not only in Paris. Amazing. So I think we touched upon all the questions from our attendees. And if any attendee has any further questions, please contact us. Here are the contact details for people who are volunteering at Project Access, and we will happily get you in touch with any panelists if you need additional guidance. But overall, please, if you are interested in applying to any of these 3 universities mentioned, apply to be a mentee with Project Access. And when you apply to be a mentee, you'll be paired with a mentor, so a student who is studying at the university that interests you, and that person will be able to provide you with personalized guidance and really talk to you about your application and ensure that you feel empowered during this process and that you maximize your chances of getting in and showing your entire potential. So it's very important that you apply as soon as possible to be mentee with us, especially given that both for undergraduate and for graduate applications, the deadlines are approaching very soon. So even if you have slight doubts regarding applying, apply to get a mentor, and this mentor will be able to guide you and really answer your doubts. Thank you so much to all the panelists for your time and for sharing your experiences with us. I feel like this webinar was very informative, and I wish I had known these things when I was applying to be a student myself from my undergrad. So thank you so much for being here and for volunteering your time during the Saturday. And yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.